All right, let's jump right into it. Today we're talking about Nepal's political scene, which, well, you could call it a revolving door. It's this world of constant change, of alliances that form and then just fall apart. We're going to break down what's really driving all this and why it matters so much for the country.
So, I want you to start with a number. Over 30. That's roughly how many different governments Nepal has seen in just the last 3 decades. I mean, think about that. It's a political revolving door that spins so fast, and it's really the root of so much of the country's instability.
So the big question is, why? What's behind this nonstop game of political musical chairs? It's a pretty complex puzzle for sure, but we can definitely start to piece it together by taking a look at who the key players are and the kind of game they're all playing.
To really get what's going on, you've got to know the players first. So let's meet the main political parties that are right at the center of all this chaos.
For years and years now, the whole political landscape in Nepal has been dominated by 3 major groups. Now, yeah, there are some smaller parties that play a part, but the power dynamics, they almost always come back to these 3. Sometimes they're allies, and just as often, they're bitter enemies. And this is where it gets really interesting. Look at the mix here. You've got the Nepali Congress, which is kind of centrist, focused on social democracy. Then there's the CPN-UML, a more moderate communist party, kind of nationalist. And finally, you have the CPN Maoist Center, which came out of a civil war with this super far-left revolutionary agenda. I mean, on paper, their ideas for the country are worlds apart. But in reality, personal ambition and the chase for power often lead them into these totally bizarre alliances that have nothing to do with ideology.
Okay, so we've met the players. Now let's dig into the forces that make their partnerships so incredibly weak and temporary. Why do these governments just keep falling apart?
Well, the first big reason is the system itself. After an election in Nepal, it's almost unheard of for one party to get a clear majority. And what that means is they're forced into what we call coalition politics. They literally have to team up with their rivals to get into power. And that means these governments are built on shaky deals, not on shared visions.
The second force, well, it comes from the outside. I mean, look where Nepal is, sandwiched between these 2 giants, India and China. It's a super strategic spot. Both of its neighbors have huge interests there, and they've been known to throw their weight around to support parties or policies that help their goals. So you can imagine, this adds a whole other layer of pressure on these already fragile coalitions.
So you put all this together and you get this predictable and honestly really frustrating cycle. An election happens, and no surprise, no one wins outright. So parties that don't even agree on the basics form a government just to get a piece of the pie. Before you know it, there are power struggles and arguments, the coalition collapses, then a new, just as shaky coalition is formed with a different group of partners, and the whole thing starts all over again. It's wild. Okay, we get the players, we get the cycle. But you might be asking, so what? Why does any of this political game actually matter? Well, it matters because the fallout from all this doesn't stay in the government buildings, it spills out and affects the daily lives of millions of people.
This isn't just political drama for the headlines. It's a massive, massive roadblock for the entire country's progress. When your government is in a constant state of change, it's pretty much impossible to tackle the big, long-term problems the nation is up against.
And here's the really crucial point. This instability has real-world consequences. Economic plans just get forgotten, huge infrastructure projects, we're talking roads, hospitals, power dams, they get stuck in limbo for years, sometimes even decades. And maybe the most damaging thing of all is that this constant churn just destroys the public's trust in the whole political system, which leads to this feeling of frustration and hopelessness.
This quote from a political analyst in Nepal, it just hits the nail on the head. The point they're making is that maybe you can't blame the rule book, the Constitution itself. The real problem is the behavior of the leaders. Their personal ambitions and their focus on short-term power grabs are what keep this whole cycle going.
And that leaves us with this final, massive question. You've got a young population there that's desperate for progress, for some stability. The pressure is building, for sure. So, can Nepal's political leaders finally rise above these endless power games and build a stable future for their country? That is the fundamental challenge they're facing right now.